All right. What's up, player? I'm here for you, dog. Genesis, episode one, the beginning. So I'm starting a podcast, and I figured what better guest to have on the first episode than myself. So I'm going to go over what the podcast is going to be about, perhaps some motivations behind it, some of the main topics that will be discussed, and the heartfelt intentions for and through the podcast. It's a lovely sunny day here in Austin, Texas. But the idea for the podcast really stemmed from Costa Rica in 2023, which is a story for another day. But I felt the call from it, uh, from my heart, to start a podcast in that moment, in that time, in that country, in that jungle for the first time. And podcast is a great way to talk about things at length vocally instead of just writing about them. I've done plenty of writing and I've enjoyed it, but it's also nice to expand the expression of myself or oneself or other people locally. And that's what this is going to be about. There's no charge behind the podcast in general, what I'm saying, how well it's received, the numbers it does. This podcast is just as important as me watering my plant. Is just as important as me putting the sticker on my water bottle this morning that says make milk raw again. Is just as important as me turning this next page over in my notebook. It all has the same level of importance. And I think podcasts often can, especially for guests, come with a degree of charge to them. Like, oh my God, I'm on a podcast. I have to perform in some sort of way. And my intention, one of my core intentions with the podcast is to host and bring together a container and a space to where myself, but just as important, the guests don't feel like there's a charge behind the conversation that's being had. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is. And that's what my intention is through this podcast, is just to have conversations with people that I want to have conversations with. It doesn't look like an interview. It doesn't look like something that's going out and it's going to be seen by a whole bunch of people. Well, maybe it is, maybe it won't be. It doesn't matter. It's just a conversation between another person and I, or whoever it is. It might just be me, solo podcast, me and a camera in the world. It's all the same level of importance. There's no charge to it. There's no charge behind what we're saying. There's no charge to how we're expressing ourselves. It's all perfect. It's all good. It's all the same level of importance. And when I signed up on this podcasting platform that I'm going to be using, they asked me to select a category, two categories for what the podcast is going to be about. And it's the same way that I felt when I applied to college. The only college application that I sent in was to Virginia Tech, and they asked me to select a major that I thought I was going to be pursuing if and when I did go to college. I felt the same way in the sense of I don't want to do any of these. I don't want to select any of these. And it's just a box on what's possible and what the whole thing is about. The true learning path and experience is limitless. There's no specific category it's about. It's not just psychology, it's all encompassing. Everything. It's infinite in its possibility. So to box this podcast in or to box my learning experience in college doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't resonate with me. I was mandated by the platform to select a category. So I chose the leisure for number one, and two was education. So I just rolled with that, and that's what it's going to be listed as, and whatever. Doesn't really matter. This is a cool moment because this is the beginning of infinity in its own way, because this podcast is a new expression coming out into the universe. And the possibilities with it, just like everything and anything else, are infinite. and we're here at the Genesis point, the beginning of infinity. So that's cool, and excited to see what comes ahead as well. And the challenge, not a challenge, the opportunity here and the blessing is to present myself and to present a space for others to present themselves from their heart and from their truth and their light that they have to give in their unique, whole, and perfect way. And I think that's a blessing to be able to do, as I said, and a great opportunity and one that I'm super excited about. But it has the same level of excitement for me as making iced matcha with cinnamon and agave this morning. It's all exciting. This podcast certainly will talk about Bitcoin because that's the most, dare I say, important thing going on. It's all part of the same self-organizing system of rampant abundance that's infinitely intelligent. And so every piece of the puzzle is just as important as the next. But Bitcoin is a big piece of that puzzle. And I, for some reason, have been called on by the universe to present and express Bitcoin's brilliance to the world and to others that are interested in learning about it. So certainly this podcast will continue to revolve around that expression and opportunity that I've been blessed to share with through many mediums, being on other podcasts, writing about it, newsletters, etc. And we'll continue to dive deep and through the vocally expressed language instead of the written language, but it'd also be a chance for me to talk about topics at length in video format, audio format, instead of just shorter blurbs on Twitter, on Substack, etc. And that really is most of the bones of this. There's so much that I'm not going to be able to imagine at this point in terms of what this will formulate into. But certainly excited for it and excited to just let it rip from the hip and keep this thing rolling. So I'll catch you on the flippity flip bucket.